I'd like to introduce Jaime Butler. Jaime is the founder and president of Brand 21. She's going to share her insights on personal branding, and she's also going to introduce Jess Ayotte, who is with Hearst Digital Media, our senior social media strategist. So Jaime is a dynamic leader with an innovative and creative edge. She has more than 2 decades of experience working with clients and companies, individual clients and companies, on brand stewardship and award-winning creative development. She is also an entrepreneur. She was one of the founders of the Finger Paint Agency in Saratoga Springs, and in 2015 she launched her 3rd advertising agency, Brand 21, a strategically focused brand marketing consultancy. So please welcome Jaime Butler.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Patty, for that introduction. And also to Kat, I want to say thank you for your story narrative. I build a lot of brands for companies and personal brands for women in business, but it really is the essence, like you said, and the details about someone's story that really kind of captivates people and really makes it your own and unique. So thank you very much for, guiding everybody through that. That was awesome and very inspiring. So thank you. I am going to play off of what Kat said and go into a little bit more of a personal brand from a career or a business perspective. So one of the things that I like to talk about is, as we are going out there in the world, as we are making our pivot, as we are looking to transform and innovate, one of the most important aspects for any businesswoman, whether you're new to an industry, whether you're an entrepreneur or a seasoned expert, it's to stand for something. And simply put, it's understanding who you are, what makes you different, and why anybody should care. It'll help you to create and tell your story beyond your title, beyond your job description, and beyond your salary. And this is also known as defining your personal brand. We so often define ourselves through our title or through our salary or through our job description. And I will say, especially for women, we are so much more than some of the things that define us, structurally. So first, what is a personal brand? I will say, just being in this business for a very long time, there's a lot of buzzword bingo that goes on. You got to do your strategy. You got to do this. You got to put it here. You got to think about this. And it's, especially today, as we're looking to innovate and differentiate ourselves, and we're in this new normal, it can be maddening. So to follow Kat's, presentation of defining your story narrative and building your confidence, simply your personal brand is about how, or how I define it to my clients, is uncovering your hidden truth. There's so much on the outside where we really have to get into the core of what's inside and really what makes us who we are and that special person out in the workforce or even just out in our community. So, your personal brand is your hidden truth that defines your passions, your individual strengths, your unique character, and your authentic purpose, to really help elevate the value within the community or a company, a leader. But actually, most importantly, similar to what Kat was saying, was when you define it for yourself and you really can put it down on paper and take a step back, you're really defining what your value is for you and embracing that for yourself. So you're having it on the inside, so then it is expressed on the outside. So, your personal brand serves as both a sounding board and a North Star for your decisions and your actions as a woman, and that of a businesswoman and what you want to achieve. So I'm not sure if everybody got it, but we did send out booklets that say, who are you? What do you stand for? What makes you different? And so even just right now, a little bit of an exercise, you can write it in a book or just on a piece of paper, but I'm just going to go through and just ask some questions for you to think about as you start to define and look at your personal brand. So what is the foundation of your personal brand? And by doing that, you want to start off by talking about what are your innate strengths or what are those learned skill sets. A strength might be creative. You know, you could be a creative problem solver. You could be analytical. You may be very good at communication. You may be very disciplined. A lot of times when I work with clients, I use, a strength finder. We use archetypes, but really just sometimes taking the time to think about that for yourself. There's so many times we're doing things for other people and we rarely spend the time to reflect on who we are and what our strengths are. So then after looking at those strengths, how would those strengths positively impact a colleague or a peer or a business community? A lot of times we call these benefits, but maybe because you are a multitasker, you would be very good at operations or understanding how things move from one place to the other. Maybe if you're good at communication or you like being in front of people, sales would be a good component. But thinking about those strengths and then looking at, all right, well, what's the benefit? Because I have these strengths, how is that going to influence others? And then what we want to do is we want to look at our unique character and our voice. So for example, are you trusting? Are you respectful? Are you caring? Are you hardworking and driven? Are you loyal and creative? Kind of identifying these foundational points helps you to kind of understand, one of the women had asked a question like in an interview. Do you have those core components down there? A lot of times there's a structural thing, but what is that true essence that is you? And then what is your tone of voice? Are you persuasive? Are you clear and concise? Are you more of a storyteller? Are you more savvy? Some of the women that I've worked with, they've almost apologized for being outspoken, but I kind of reinforce to them that's a positive. Not everybody needs one type of character or needs one type of voice in an organization. So then as we move forward, building on and defining your strengths, now determine, like Kat's kind of talking about, your target audience. Who are you going to talk to? How I like to define it is who needs you? Who do you need to get in front of? Being very clear on who needs to hear your story, who you need to tell your story to is really important, because so often we go after what other people think that we should do, or what we're reading in the newspaper. Oh, well, there's a lot of jobs or opportunities, or this is a good career to go into, but really who is going to align with your story, with your personal brand? Because one of the things is that if you're talking to somebody and sharing your story, but they aren't that type of person that's going to embrace that story, it's going to have a negative outcome, but that doesn't mean that what you're doing or what you're intending to do is wrong or bad. It just means it's not a good fit. I know DeQuetta said yesterday, someone had commented to her about her mohawk, and that was awesome that she said, well, that's who I am. So what if I do get the job and then I'm wearing a wig or whatever, and I have to take it out because I'm being more myself. So just remember that your story, like Kat was also saying, is your personal story, and there are people out there that will embrace it. So be very clear of possibly who you're going to be in front of. So, and then the third, and like Lauren had said yesterday, write it down. Define your career and your personal brand goals, by shortlisting what you're looking to achieve through defining your personal brand and using it as a guidepost. We are in a very uncertain and unprecedented time, but I do like to look at it as uncertainty shouldn't lead to inactivity. Look at this as an opportunity. Maybe you've been in a certain career or position or job or title, and it's like, now is the time to maybe, or that's why we're all here, but now is the time to pivot. And there's so many new opportunities that are taking place. I mean, just look at what we're doing right now. I mean, it wasn't a thought, but it came out of something, it came out of a crisis. It came out of an uncertainty. And someone said, well, listen, we have to now solve a new problem, or we have to look at things differently so we can live our lives comfortably, so we can still connect, so we can still move business forward. So sometimes I was founder of Finger Paint, and we actually launched Finger Paint in 2008 in the downfall of the economy. And the clients that we had, I kind of shifted my previous company into Finger Paint, and it was devastating, but we just kept focused. We believed in what we were doing, and we felt that there was a need. So sometimes crisis or things that are foreign can really turn into something that's positive. So just as a simple takeaway, always like to say, define what you stand for, your passions and your purpose that defines your hidden truth, and live and tell your story beyond your title or salary, and how I like to refer to it, living authentically. So I'm not sure if Jess is around. Patty, can you just...
I'm here, Jaime.
Okay, good. Okay. So now that we've learned how to define, our personal brands and how to tell a captivating and authentic, story narrative, I want to introduce Jess, and who will share a few insights and tips on how to promote your personal brand, your story out in digital and out in kind of the, more digitally. It's the big thing right now because of where we are. How do you tell your story when you can't physically meet in front of someone? So just a little bit about Jess. She is a senior social media strategist at Hearst Digital and the Times Union. She manages social media campaigns and strategies for an array of local and national clients. And she is also a graduate of the College of St. Rose with a Bachelor of Fine Arts and in photography. So welcome, Jess, and glad that you're here.
Hi, thank you, Jaime, for the introduction. Just going off of, what you've been saying about having a presence, but not only a voice. I found lately, now more than ever, the most important thing for you to do as an individual, as your own brand, is to find the platform that speaks well to you and something that's relevant. Jelani, I'm going to pick on you real quick because I just found your Instagram with your clothing company on it, and it's really great. Instagram is such a visual platform, so you hit the nail right on the head with that. And in your line of work, you want to stick with Instagram, and you're continuing to do art. And I remember being in your position at St. Rose when Instagram first became a thing, and all of us were trying to figure it out. And that's kind of where we all started as well. In the journalism world of things, our reporters, they are what we call our micro-influencers on Twitter. So there are a lot of what we would say are the local industry thought leaders in their own sense. So if you're someone who, you're into storytelling, you're into news, you're into, getting more of a written message out, a platform like Twitter, even LinkedIn is making that shift now more than ever. It's a good spot to interact with the community and just get engaged through less of a visual standpoint, more of like quick news bits. But I personally follow a lot of really great people on Twitter. I use it a lot for my job. One of my favorite accounts is Taylor Lorenz. She's a tech writer for the New York Times. But I follow a lot of advertising things, as Jaime knows. But yeah, that's I think finding the right platform right now is more important than ever. And there's just too many to pick from these days. There's TikTok now and things like that, which makes sense depending on the audience you're trying to reach too. So Gen Z, TikTok all the way, Snapchat, things like that.
So I think we do have a little bit more time too. So I want to ask you some questions, Jess, to kind of, maybe pinpoint some of the things that people are thinking in their head. So when you're choosing different platforms, if we were focusing on, LinkedIn, it's important these days for job seeking, networking. What tactics can you use to highlight your personal brand and the characteristics that set you apart? I know you're just kind of talking about Instagram, but what are some things from a LinkedIn perspective?
Yeah, from more of a job seeker perspective, so to say, LinkedIn is best used with your skills that you list. Connections are important always, but LinkedIn is shifting more to having people apply within the platform rather than taking you to a company's website. So listing your skills, making sure your resume, you use it essentially as like a big resume, and making sure all of that is up to date, because LinkedIn jobs are now matching people with the skills listed on their profile and who's endorsing you for them. So making sure that you are, connecting with people that you work with, updating your LinkedIn page with any recent projects, accomplishments, things that you have there is really important. But I've noticed on both ends of it, as like a user and as someone who is posting many jobs a day on LinkedIn, it's the traffic, it completely dropped off at the beginning of the pandemic, but right now it's gone right back up and has passed what it ever has at the beginning of 2020. So there's a lot of jobs on there and a lot of job seekers. So having all that info updated is really important.
Yeah, I've even noticed that for myself. I will admit that due to some things, as you know, haven't been on as much, but that when I do go on, it's interesting. There are a lot of opportunities out there. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind as well, is just putting yourself out there to be seen for the opportunities, or even to take advantage of the opportunities yourself. So again, going back to, social media, it's very important to have a presence. But do you have kind of tips and ideas of how to transform that presence into, say, having a voice? I think that's where, your story narrative and your personal brand really come into play, is, being just someone that has a presence and then turning it into kind of that unique voice that speaks your truth. What are some thoughts that you have on that? Or maybe examples. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I think, again, looking at other thought leaders in your space on these platforms is really important. I came from the automotive industry before I worked at the Times Union, and it was a totally different type of environment. So before, you want to make a presence, see kind of what other people are doing and see how you yourself can contribute as a thought leader in your field and in the space. Everyone has a lot to offer, and I think, seeing how the platforms work are all different too. Twitter operates completely different than Facebook and LinkedIn. But I think it's really important to see how people interact there, join communities, respond to people, talk to other people. That's the greatest part about the internet, I think, is although you're all strangers, people come to these things for common ground on certain topics. So there's a lot of ideas being passed around all the time, and you learn a lot from other people.
No, I agree. And I think for a lot of people, because it has shifted, because social media has shifted, it causes people it's out of their comfort zone. And I think sometimes what we have to realize is just engaging in it a little by little, and just starting to put yourself out there. Because I think one of the things that this pandemic has shown us is that, things will shift. It's not a bad thing, but sometimes we do have to shift with it. I could think of a lot of brands that decided not to shift to digital, and it's it just is hard. So when in Rome, act like the Romans. But I think maybe, why don't we open things up for questions? I don't know if anyone has any questions for Jess, or even for myself, or even just from the day as a whole.
You can put your questions into chat, or I think, in this group, unmiking would be fine as well.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on converging different interests into one voice within a platform, or do you risk becoming too niche, or do you risk having too many separate pages set up for things? Like how do you bridge those?
Yeah, so that's something we run into a lot with clients, is they have 10 different pages for kind of one unified thing. Even within the Times Union, we catch ourselves doing that too a little bit. We have Times Union jobs, Times Union real estate, Times Union editorial page. I think what I tell people is what you are able to spend the most time on. Consistently posting is key. I went back and forth. Patty and I have had conversations about YouTube and things like that. And this was pre-pandemic when, Zoom and all these videos weren't a thing. We were like, well, we don't always have enough content to consistently post to maintain a YouTube page. So, but now that we have all of this, we do. So it's really great. And I think it's just making sure that whatever one piece you have is being maintained and upkept, because that's going to keep people engaged.
Anyone else have any questions?
I think we have a question from Molly Belmont in chat. She's wondering, when you say consistently posting, how often is that?
Depending on the platform, we study pretty closely how people interact with things. Lately, since mid to the end of March, people's habits online have completely changed. Everyone is available at all hours these days. 1 to 2 times a day is pretty ideal. Before the pandemic, we were saying, a couple times a week is always good. From a business side, even a personal thing, a personal page like Twitter or something like that, you could retweet, and it's kind of like you're being active on the platform. You don't have to actually say anything. You're just retweeting someone else's tweet, which is always helpful. But I'd say now kind of double down on your posting within the pandemic.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Jess, that I think would be valuable. Is there a difference between organic content and like posting or sharing an article that, say, another organization had written? What is the difference?
I think depending on what it is, Jamie, I know like we talked, like I'll use Brand 21 as an example, is you want to be seen in your space as a thought leader or a conversation starter. So let's say you find an article from Forbes or New York Times, even though it's not content you created, you could share a piece of insight of what you got out of that article and maybe start a conversation with the people that are following your page.
Great, thank you.